not one, across all the sectors. The data is clear. So, when he said the performance of his government was better than ours, I said to him, if you believe that, then come for a debate, one-on-one. Let us show whether it's the case or not. Come for a debate. Come for a debate. When you come for a debate, you cannot come and say, hey, Yesu, and go away. I'll pin you down with the facts and data. I'll pin you down with the facts and data. I will pin you down. When I told him to come, Osuro, Ojani to send Kukon Kitty, Ojani. So, on what basis does John Mahama want to come back? What is the basis? You cannot say you've done better in education, not in healthcare, not in agriculture, not in infrastructure, not in digitalization. Maybe you have done better in Dumso, I confirm, and then Kokon Kiti. That's it. We want a government that is going to move this country into the fourth industrial revolution. I have many initiatives that I am bringing. I want Ghana to move away from a dependence on oil and gas to solar power. Solar power. Solar power. We are going to bring down the cost of electricity by 50%, and we are going to do it by moving to solar power. We are going to move to electric vehicles in public transportation. We have started to do the pilot. By moving to electric vehicles, we are going to bring down the cost of public transport by 50% to everybody. We are bringing down the cost of public transport. We are going to leverage the private sector of this economy to create jobs. The private sector holds the key to our wealth creation and prosperity. I am going to make sure that at least 3% of GDP, that is 30 billion Ghana cedis, is ceded to the private sector from the public sector to create jobs for our economy. I am going to bring a flat tax regime to Ghana. A flat tax regime for our imports, a flat tax regime for our incomes, and that will make it very, very easy for tax collection and understanding compliance and so on. So Ghana will have, by the grace of God, a flat tax regime next year. To make sure we all start on a clean slate, I'm bringing in a tax amnesty for all businesses and individuals next year so that we move. The transformation of this country cannot be done without railway infrastructure. We, in the first 8 years, we have been focusing a lot on our roads. I am going to bring in the required investment to build our railway infrastructure. Accra, Kumasi, Paga, Kumasi, Takradi, Ejisu, Eduade, Awasu, Minahene, Eduade. We are going to do all those railways, the great jobs for this country. We are also going to enter into the decade of housing. We are going to address the decade of housing, we are going to build houses just like Singapore did with private sector capital. And I'm going to look, let me tell you one thing. State Housing Corporation, during President Mahama's term of office, state housing, they built only 12 houses. 12. During our term, we have built over 1,000 houses in state housing. Choboy, when you go to Tema Development Corporation, TDC, during Mahama's period, they built 0 housing. 0. During our period, TDC has built over 1,000 houses. So, when I tell you that we are going to go into a decade of housing, I know what I'm talking about. We are going to go into a decade of housing to leverage on the private sector to build housing. And housing means jobs, carpenters, masons, electricians, plumbers, windows people, roofers, a lot of jobs to all our people. So we are in the digital world, and I want to provide the youth digital skills. I want to train at least 1 million youth of Ghana in digital skills. They can stay here in Ghana, work in America, work in Canada, work in Singapore, work in the UK, work in Australia, right from here in Ghana. We are in the digital world. You will get digital skills. Jamai, we have many policies that we have put in our manifesto. Of course, I cannot put all of them out here tonight, but I have been talking about them. One key policy is the credit scoring system. The credit scoring system. We are going to change Ghana with this credit scoring system. Today, if you finish school, you are working, everything you have to buy is cash. Everything is cash. We have introduced a credit scoring system, and very soon you will be buying things from next year and be paying small, and everybody will see an increase in their standard of living. This is a major policy that we are bringing. So, we are also going to see, as we go forward, under my government, all persons with disability will go for university and tertiary education for free. All persons with disability will go for tertiary education for free under my government. So, we are going to transform this country, move it to another level. As we go on Saturday to make the choice is between the former president who represents the past and myself. You should ask yourself, who can better unite this country? Who can better unite the diversity of this country? Who can bring innovative ideas to propel Ghana into the 4th Industrial Revolution? So who has the integrity to fight corruption in this country? Who has the integrity to fight corruption in this country? Somebody who has the compassion for the disabled, for the vulnerable, for the sick in our society? Who cares about the needy? Somebody who can protect free senior high school education? Who can protect free SHS? Who can protect teacher training allowances? Who can protect nursing training allowances? Who can bring more development to our Zongo communities? So So you should mull all these questions and ask yourself, who will work very hard and selflessly for the people of Ghana? Who will work very hard and selflessly for the people of Ghana? So who can protect our natural resources? Who can protect our natural resources? So if you ask yourselves all these questions, there is only one answer, and that answer is number one. It's number one. It's number one. It's number one. That answer is clearly Dr. Bawumia. And that answer is clearly the NPP parliamentary candidates in all our constituencies. Number one. I don't need a honeymoon. I don't need a honeymoon. I know what I want to do from day one in the presidency. Give me the chance to transform this nation. I have my own vision. I have my own vision. I have my own ideas. I'm going to build on our splendid record and transform Ghana and propel Ghana and unleash the forces of the private sector in Ghana to bring in the investment to transform this country. So it's number one, 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 number one. It's number one. I'm not busy. Tinabai, Nia Panganga, Molaya Zayina, Asibari, Katuboti, Kelvoti number one, NT, Dr. Bawumia, the NPP Jintoro, Baba Constituents Maza. Iya Yanazada Patajama, Salam Alaikum. Naso, Ran Asibir, Kufita, Kuzo, Kuvote, Kubai, Dr. Bawumia, number one. Number one, Miriam, Mr. Obia said, Yam Yina, Yamba police station, Miminda, Nayan to Abanu Boom, and my number one, number one, number one, number one, number one. Miramina Asi, Yamisha, Wedding Papa Day, and Flyer Mahama, now Vampire at the election, at the Yeminah, and Yamimo, na Saturday, na Kotua Bala. Ishranka Wudi, Yadawasi, Erade, Sawacha Yaso, Ama and that Axie, Yabompa, yes, Memneda, Abbey, Eradi Paja, Muni and Dim Kunem, Eradi Paja, Moma and Pia Mano Kunim Kunem,
It's the 5th of December, preparing for the big day, Saturday, the 7th of December, where Ghana goes to the polls to elect that gentleman that will lead the country in the next 4 years. Tonight on election night, we're looking at what would it take for you to vote for whoever for the 2024 elections. What is this election about? This is our special program preparing for the 2024 general and parliamentary elections. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. I have a huge panel that will take us through everything for the 2024 elections as we take hold of the ship and drive you to the declaration for the results for this year's elections. When I come back, I'll introduce that panel. I'll take you through what we'll be talking about in a few seconds. Stay with us. You're welcome back to our special coverage preparing for the 2024 election coverage. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. Just gone by, prior to me coming in, you saw the big final rally of the two major political parties, the NPP and the NDC. Today ends the campaign season for these two political parties and all others trying to put across what they will do when they come into power. But now, We're going to look at that and then the numbers and what you're likely to see on election day. In the studio with me here, we have Selorm Adonoo. You see him on Saturdays on what we call the big issue. And other times you see him on what the papers are saying. And he's also a lawyer at the other side of the world. Selorm, welcome.
Thank you, Vivian.
Then we have Larry Dogbe, managing editor of the Herald newspaper, also joins us for what the papers are saying, as well as Breakfast Daily every now and then. Larry, welcome.
Thank you.
And then a gentleman who you've not seen on TV for close to 4 years. Last election, he was with us. His returning means that it's a crucial time now. Godfred Akoto Boafo on the breakfast show every day on radio joins us as well.
Vivian, you look stunning.
You look good.
You look stunning.
It's been a minute.
It's good to be back, Vivian.
And then we have Richard Dela Sky, a lawyer, as well as one of the key people on the breakfast show, joining us. You also see him every now and then on TV. Richard, welcome.
Honored to be here.
And at the extreme side of the studio, if you have a wide shot, you see a gentleman I have been doing this with in the afternoons, actually, on what we call the Situation Room. He's also on radio every day. Bernard Avle. He's going to be giving us the figures, the numbers, analysis around those numbers and why we see certain things in particular regions. It's rather biased panel, all men, but I'll try to drive
But
the
a woman is driving the show.
Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
You all look lovely in your white.
Yeah.
And then Richard complimenting it with a jacket.
I know, right?
So tonight the discussion is, what is this election about? What are we going to see? Why will people go the blue or the green or whatever you want to say? Some say yellow. I don't know about that. But I know it's going to do a green or a blue for Ghana. I'm going to start with, who am I starting with? Larry.
No, start with the UK thing.
I'm going to start with Sky. Quickly, I want us to do some 5 minutes on the final campaign we saw. And Bernard, you're going to be part of that. You're not just going to do the, the numbers. We've seen the two major political parties throw their last ammunition for Saturday. Your impressions about that final, did it make any, inroads at this time?
Well, first of all, let me say that I must commend the two political parties because, I mean, much earlier before the events today, some of us had expressed fears about the closeness of the two events, the venue,
locations, yeah,
and the likelihood that, something could happen as a result of the closeness. As we speak, we have not heard any untoward report of something so bad happening, and that is to celebrate the two political parties, the people who are leading them, and then also the police service for the job they have done thus far. Great effort, and I must commend all the people behind it. And of course, the media for the critical role they played in raising some of these critical issues as to drive the police to put the attention where attention has got to be put.
Yeah.
That having been said, I think in terms of the level of organization, I think the two political parties have pulled it off in a big way. But I would say that when it comes to production for purposes of media consumption, I think the NDC appears to have done a better job in terms of how they packaged their event today. You'll notice that at some point, the sound was poor. The lighting also went off at some point, and they had to make some quick attempts to resolve the issue. I think a greater effort needs to be made when you're dealing with your closing arguments, because people want to feel exactly what's happening there. People are not at the scene. They want to be taken there, and they want to be a part of the process of electing a new president. And if you deny them of, that in a certain way, it goes to affect your message getting out there. But beyond that, I think very cardinal messages were sent this evening.
Yeah.
We have heard the closing arguments of John Dramani Mahama, the former president, who was seeking re-election, and then the vice president, Bawumia, who is seeking election as president of the republic. Basically, John Dramani Mahama is seeking a return to the presidency, and his argument is that I want to create jobs for you. I believe people are struggling. I went around this country and I've seen poverty written on the faces of people. The problem is jobs. I am promising that when I come, I know what it takes to create jobs so that the youth will have something to do. It's a major issue. When you go around the country, you hear that. Then he's talking about what? Accountability. You've had an NPP administration that has run, affairs of Ghana for the past 8 years. We've had scandals upon scandals, some of which were not thoroughly investigated and perhaps prosecuted to the glory of God. So people are generally not happy about the state of affairs. The question is whether they believe that John Mahama's return, should that happen, lead to the kind of accountability that they expect. Then you also have the question of, what do you call it? There's one thing that he talks about, prosperity for all of us, that it would seem that under the current administration, you've seen concentration of wealth in a privileged few. And you hear all the names that get bandied about. And that the government does not appear to be distributing the wealth across the country. So he wants to fix that. Okay. Now, the reverse is Mahama Bawumia, who says that, well, we have been able to turn this country around, only for COVID to come to smash us, only for the war in Russia, Ukraine, to undermine our efforts. But we told you that during COVID, we were capable of bringing the economy back to life, but not human beings. Now we are doing that. And if you look at the economic numbers, they will throw them up and say that, well, I mean, we have increased trade surplus. We have, the CD recently is performing fairly well. If you look at the history of the CD over the last couple of years and all of that. But people do remember the haircuts. Okay. So he's making the argument that, well, we'll be able to fix it going forward. Okay. Well, okay.
Yeah. So let
I
me
have
go
two
around.
more things to say.
No,
but okay.
we'll come back to that later. Our time is very limited. So tonight, gentlemen, I want you to keep it straight to the point. Papa, you have a lot of time on Saturday, Sunday, even Monday and Tuesday. So don't worry.
I thought I wanted to make it 3-3, but that's okay.
So I'll come back to you, Godfred. In 2 minutes, and 2 minutes goes round. Were you sold with whoever for Saturday based on the closing remarks and closing the curtain for Saturday, of course, for the past 4 years, but tonight, did it make any difference? And what do you think they could have done to make a difference if they didn't?
Well, I think that today for both parties reflected the kind of campaign that has been run. I think that the NDC put out an assured performance today on the final rally. I agree with Sky when he says that it was well organized, it was well put together in terms of the messaging, in terms of the personalities and the audience resonance. The NPP also put out a couple of strong names, but it's been staggered. If you look at the campaign they've run, it's been a campaign built around Bawumia's stardom by himself. They haven't had as much stars to spread around, so you've had Bawumia had to do a lot of legwork. Later to be supported by by a former president, Kufour, and the sitting president. If you look at the NDC side, they've had quite a few stars to spread around. So Mahama hasn't had to do too much work. You've had the rise of Malik Basintale, you've had Sami Jemfi, you've had General Desiedun Ketia run around, you've had Otukuno, you've had all these names spread around. And I think it's reflective of the kind of campaigns they run. As to whether everybody is sold on, I think it's a hard task for both parties. If you look at where they've been, the number of times they've been there, everybody understands what is at stake, where everybody has looked to maximize their resources the best way. So you look at the NPP, they didn't spend too much time in the Volta region because they know they won't get much out of it. If you look at the NDC, spends quite a bit of time in the Ashanti region because they know exactly what they want to get out of it as well. So in the end, it becomes a matter of we are working hard till the very last minute to convince a lot of people. In the end, those who showed up today are those who they know they can convince. They've already convinced them. Perhaps they were talking to those they have not been able to convince. Whether they've been able to do that, Saturday will tell.
We'll see that on Saturday. Mr. Larry, what do you think?
I think it went well. Yeah, it went well. I mean, to have, as the my two colleagues said, to have brought their supporters to this level of, closeness.
Without any incident.
Yes, Ayawaso and then Medina, without an incident. Without an incident because when I was coming to town, I noticed the presence of, policemen almost at every corner that, you could think of. And traffic control was also okay and so on. And I think that by and large, they did well. On the message, I think, like Akoto said, I mean, we already know what we are voting for, okay? Whether we are voting for continuity, those who want to vote for continuity knows what they've already decided. And those who also want a change, they've also made up their mind. And so much of what happens today will not change anything.
It wouldn't change for anybody?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
It wouldn't change much.
Just the final chorus in church.
I think so. They're just restating, you know, whatever they have told people already. Yeah.
Selorm, you agree?
Yeah, largely yes. I think it was a good program on both sides. Quite impressive on both sides as well. The messaging, I think, is just a restatement of everything they've said in the past, and trying to pitch for the last time to the generality of Ghanaians. In terms of the crowd size, yes, between NDC and NPP, I'm not sure you can pick anything, you know, in terms of crowd size. They both have the numbers to marshal a lot of people at a place. So you can't use crowd size to make any major difference. For me, I want to look at the Kufour factor. You know, you realize that they deployed Kufour towards the last lap of the campaign quite effectively. Yeah. We saw that interview, the primetime interview with the Ashanti region journalist in his house. Yeah. And he spoke Twi in that interview. That told you that Kufour is a very important factor or asset to the NPP. And that interview, in my view, was addressing specifically the Ashanti audience, you know. So we saw that they used the face of the media in Ashanti region to do that. After that, he went to the Eastern region, after a while. So we saw the reaction from that interview. Alan was not happy. Alan thought that Kufour had thrown him under the bus, etc., etc. He wasn't happy. It got to Kufour as well. So Kufour went to the Ochinhene's palace and said that people say statesman, you don't have to say some things, but he said it, you know, and that Bawumia was a man of destiny. Yeah. That was a major endorsement of the man Bawumia. Talked about how he met him in some program abroad, he came to do a presentation, blah, blah, blah. You know, major endorsement of the man Bawumia. Major, even more seminal or more impactful than what Nana Addo himself would have done, you know. So we saw Kufour in that sense. He went ahead to do a few other things. And today, they drove him to the place in his wheelchair. He took quite some amount of time to push the Bawumia message. Why did they do that? In my view, they did so because Kufour, as it stands now, cuts across. It's a very important figure in the NPP, and it's not as divisive as he was years ago in the country. So it's a rallying point for many people. You know, it gets like that. Yeah. As we speak, Nana Addo is quite a contentious or a divisive figure. As time goes on, the divisiveness will reduce. Now it is this record that is on the table. It is this record the NDC is attacking, and Bawumia is running on this record, so he has a stake in it. He has to say some things. There was a reason why people didn't expect Kufour to endorse Bawumia the way he did, even though I thought there was nothing wrong with it, because that is his party. His party, yeah. You know, people didn't expect him to do so because they consider him a statesman. Nana Addo is a statesman, but he's the president. His record is what is under attack. So people expect him to be active in the race. You know, so we saw all of that. We saw him today talk, addressing the people. A lot of the people they are seeking to address are the people in the Ashanti region. And we've seen how important Ashanti region has been in this campaign. In fact, Mahama left Ashanti region straight to the campaign ground, or to the rally ground. I understand, what's the name? Bawumia also was in Ashanti region today. Even at the last minute. He came back yesterday. Came back last night. Telling you that Ashanti region has been key. Bawumia spending over 15 days in Ashanti.
But the president was also in the region today. You know,
so it tells you how important that region is. So having Kufour as an asset, you don't leave him unused. So I think they milked him enough, and I think it was a good strategy.
Okay, final one from Bernard. The final rallies, your thoughts on that quickly?
When 4 intelligent people speak, there's nothing else to say. I just wanted to say that because therefore I'll give you 4 issues in this election. I think this election is about economy versus education, and I'll explain. The NDC is making economy the issue. When I interviewed Fifi yesterday, he said it's an economy election. The NPP in the last 3 months have succeeded in bringing the free SHS as an issue. That's why the NDC even started doing ads to say, we are not cancelling free SHS, we'll make it better. So economy versus education, that's number 1. Number 2, it's urban versus rural. Because if you look at the map behind you, generally, people in rural areas registered more than people in urban areas in terms of percentage growth. Yeah. The sentiment in urban areas is markedly different. We saw that in the previous polls. So that's the second major issue here. All right. There's also a north versus south issue because, again, the more north you go, the more people are eager to vote. Why? The two candidates are from the north. So it seems as if there's going to be a certain outcome in the north that may even defy previous trends. In the south, Ashanti, Greater Accra, Western, you didn't see that much enthusiasm. All right. So you have rural versus urban, north versus south, economy versus education. Some people want to say it's also past versus future, although I'm not really sure the NDC will agree to that, because if you listen to the NPP today, a lot of the presentation was that we are looking to the future. If you go to Mahama, you are going to the past. So that's a bit, but the three I've said, almost all the people I've interviewed agree that essentially there's an urban-rural issue going on. There's an education, economy, dynamic playing out. There's also a north-south issue playing out. And those contrasts are very clear for you to see that depending on where this goes. And of course, there's also change versus continuity. That's the big story, right? Do you want more of the same? Which is why the NDC talks, they always talk about Kufour, Bawumia. So even though Bawumia is the candidate, they want you to know that Kufour is the guy, because what people are feeling is about him. All right? Yeah. So that's the change thing versus the continuity. So I think those are the four major issues that have to be resolved to determine the outcome. I can even add a bonus one. Strongholds versus swing regions. Okay. Because of the point they made about Ashanti, because if you look at this, everybody's in Ashanti. Why? Because people realize that if there's a massive turnout in the government stronghold, it kind of makes nonsense of a lot of things that happens, because the swing regions are quite marginal. So a bonus point would be strongholds versus swing regions and how things pan out. Right. So maybe later on we can show some of that.
Okay, so we've laid the foundation. So it's a game of numbers. Yes. I mean, you can do, but if you don't get the figures to make you pass the required, you don't have any. So let's go straight to that. You're starting right in front of that very important screen there. So let's start with the national outlook in terms of the margins, the differences we've seen over the years, and then we'll pick comments as we go along.
Can you allow me to walk to the other side?
Sure, you can come.
Because I want to explain the numbers and get your comments.
Okay.
The reason I say it's a north versus south issue, all right? So here we have 2020 versus 2024 registered voters. The percentage growth, the average growth in voters is 10% in the country. So anybody above 10% means that they've registered more compared to 2020, not in absolute numbers, because if I show you absolute numbers of voters, just to make the point clear, this is the national. Greater Accra has the most. Ashanti has the second. Then Eastern and Central. So the population is centered here. These are very sparsely populated areas. But the north versus south issue plays out when you look at percentage change in voters, which means how eager are people registering. Yeah. All right? The national average is 10%. Look at Northeast region, 17% growth in voter population. That's a lot of people registering, okay? Take Northern region, 15%, 5% above the national average. That tells you that there's a lot of eagerness to vote. Now, gentlemen, the reason this is interesting is that if you match these registrations with the NCC's survey asking people likelihood to vote, the people who want to vote are in the north. Northeast, 97.3. Northern, 97.4. Upper East and Upper West in the top 90s. Volta, 88, which is middle. Greater Accra, 70. Ashanti, 81. Central, 78. Eastern, 76. So we see a correlation between eagerness to register, possibly because the both candidates are from there, and then also willingness to vote.
Right.
But what makes this thing very interesting is that even though the people up there want to vote more, the numbers are down.
Are down there. So hang on there. Let me bring in the other gentleman on the dynamics in this election around the north, which we know the two main guys are from there, and then the lower part where the numbers are, and how both parties can reconcile these two. North, eagerness to vote, but the numbers are low. South, down south, mid-belt, all the way down south. That's where the action are in terms of the numbers. How do they balance these two sides?
Well, obviously up north, because there's an emotional attachment there.
Yeah.
Northeast, because obviously that's Bawumia's home region. So the push to get people to come out there. If you look at the voting trends over the past 2 elections, they have really come out to vote. And when we get into the numbers over the weekend, I will show you this. If you look at the north as well, as Bernard explained, it's a 9-9 split there in Parliament, but the NDC generally does well there. Now, they also have a stake in this because of one of the candidates there. So certainly there will be a push. Now, there's also been, the trends over the past 2 elections have shown that the arrival of Bawumia on the scene has impacted what happens in the north, which used to be a very strong, one would say, NDC enclave. So the rise in those numbers, what does it mean? Does it mean that the NDC has gone out there to get people back in? Does it mean that the NPP is growing there? Those are things that on Saturday we will be able to make sense of once we start getting some numbers. Now, if you come down south, there isn't that much of an affinity to the candidates as we would see there. Again, because of, I would say, voter sophistication to a certain level, the way people are enthused about showing up to vote, about registering, might not be the same up north. We've discussed matters of apathy, and again, that will come up later on, which explains some of the poor numbers, I wouldn't say relatively poor numbers compared to what we've seen up north for the southern areas. Ashanti, I think, flattens out a bit. Even though if you look at the percentage change, for instance, it's 254,000 persons more who have registered. I think it's the largest in the country, Bernard, if I'm not mistaken.
So in absolute numbers, Ashanti has the most, but in percentages,
it's not significant.
It's not that significant. Don't forget, the bigger the base.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why we show. So as you are saying, Ashanti has 275,000 more registered voters, but that's just a 9%. So it's actually lower than the national average, right? Greater Accra has the second largest absolute number of registered voters in terms of new voters.
Yeah.
All right. But when you put the percentage together, it's just the national average. So the eagerness question is better answered by percentages than by what do you call it? Than by the raw
numbers.
The raw number. Yes. I just wanted to go back to, so Greater Accra
6%.
236, but it's just 6%.
Yeah.
So
lower than the average.
I think that the two questions here, if the base is big, it tells you that there are more people to vote. So even though the percentage is small, because the election is first past the post, the bigger base should be considered, right? Because you can take 3 constituencies in Accra, and the northeast region is over. If you take Dogbe Kwabenya 183,000, Ashaman, and you add the third one, Amasaman, they are actually, I can show you that right now. Where is Dogbe Kwabenya? Dogbe Kwabenya is 182,000. Where is Ashaman? So that's 357 already.
Yeah.
Now, if I add Amasaman,
170.
527, all right? Now, let's go back to regionals. If I take the northeast region, 339,000, the whole region. So, these people I got to vote, they are not many.
Yeah.
These guys down there, they are not so interested in voting,
but they don't really
but they are a lot. So, if somebody here, their voters don't show up, and his opponent's voters show up, the gap that they produce here may annihilate a whole region. So you need to balance the base of voters and the eagerness to vote. It's not very easy to do, which is why you guys are here to help us explain it.
You showed me something over the past weeks, looking at the numbers in terms of the eager side and then all the apathy. And can you take us through that quickly?
I don't have that slide here, but what I have is that there's a direct correlation between this fact of deep red percentage growth in numbers with the NCC document. I'm sure Fred can put it out. Because NCC did a survey in September, and they asked people how likely you are to vote. The lowest percentage was Greater Accra, 70%. The highest was Northeast, 97.3, 97.4. Followed by North, 97, just 0 percentage lower. And then Savannah was also high. OT was also high. Upper East, Upper West. So it was very clear. And these two are independent things. This is facts of people who are registered. And then these are people's intentions in a survey to vote. So we can easily say that the more people register as a percentage of the previous year, the more interested they are in voting. That's what I'm basically trying to say, Vivian.
Okay.
I hope that point makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So this tells you that we will have possibly higher turnout up north than turnout down south.
Okay.
That's basically one inference you can make. Western region didn't register that many. So if I show you Western, for example, just 8% growth. That's pretty small. All right. Growth in Central region, 11%, just 1% above the national average. So it's basically average. It's not that high. Volta region, 12% growth, 12.9, close to 13%. Again, people generally in 8-year cycles, people who are in opposition strongholds are more eager than people in government strongholds. So the voters, 12.9 to 13 makes sense because generally NDC tends to do well there. If you go to Upper East and Upper West as well, you will see that there's a bit of, there's a bit of eagerness to vote. Upper West is just 10. Upper East gives us 13, I think. Let's go there. 12.43. So generally, you will have bigger numbers in places where people have a disgruntlement.
All right.
Which possibly explains why the NPP has been very serious about the Kufour point you made.
Yeah.
The Ashanti point.
The Ashanti. So with that in mind, let's go quickly to the strongholds, the battlefields in terms of regions.
All right. Now
I'll pick their thoughts on that.
Okay. If we are looking at just registered voters, I can go here. But if you want to look at performance of strongholds,
you have to
go back there.
So whilst you are going there, I'll pick their comments.
Yeah, while Bernard is doing that, I was looking at the census figures for 2021. And, you know, this election has also been made an issue about the youth.
Yeah.
Right? And three major regions stand out for me. The Northern, the Ashanti, and the Greater Accra.
Okay.
And the numbers are somewhat, you know, very interesting. So you have Greater Accra, 41% of the population
Youth.
said to be youthful.
What's your definition of youthful? Because there's
so
an
we're
issue
talking
with
18
definition.
to 35.
Okay.
Just analyzing the report.
Okay. Your people will say 55 and they. Oh, he's an old man.
It's not saying
He's 35.
No, I used to be a youth.
So 18 to 35.
Yeah, that's right. Then you have Ashanti 39%, and then the Northern region making 40%.
Okay.
Now, at the same time, we're seeing major inflows from other parts of the country to these regions. So the Greater Accra region is receiving a lot of movement from other communities, especially in the rural areas, to these city centers. Then you have the Ashanti region also receiving the same, and then the Northern region. Now, if you go to the Western region, we're told that mining activities there are attracting a lot of the youth. Again, back to the issue of jobs. And then you also talk about the Central region, where we are told that a lot of people are moving into that area because of the increasing urbanization there. Now, the question is, how have we seen messages from the two political parties, the two major ones, targeting specifically the needs of the youth, the issue of job, how to deal with the job issues that they face? Of course, digitization is a big issue right now because of issues about, you know, AI, modernizing systems to respond to modern needs and all of that. And then also the question of what do we do with education? Because you have seen that the NPP keeps talking about free senior high school, producing a lot of people who are waiting to go to the university. Now the question is, will these people turn out on election day in their big numbers?
Yeah.
And if they are voting, the question is, where are they placing their vote? The NPP creates a panic situation and says, these guys want to cancel. Mahama says, I'm not cancelling. I just want to modernize it. Right. Who do they trust most? Yeah. And how will that impact the overall elections?
Okay, great stuff.
So interestingly, just to take it from there. So free SHS, so the youth question. Free SHS versus no fee stress, right? The first day free thing. Digitalization and unemployment. First thing, digitalization. So the youth has become central because of these three issues: education, free SHS. The NPP wants to make it an issue and drive the young people who have benefited from the free SHS. By the time you finish SHS, you should be around 16 or 17, 18. You know, largely, you know, from 2017, those guys should be in the bracket, and so they should be able to vote. So if before your parents could not have paid for you to attend SHS, now you got it free. The point is, from 2017 till now, would they remember that? Because it's become the mainstay. It's become something that is to be expected, to the point of some being entitled to it now. Right. So would they be careful to credit the NPP with that? So that's what I think the NDC is trying to do. So now you finish one thing. There's a proverb in where that I mean, when you eat what you ate yesterday will not take you throughout the day today, right? So you ate yesterday, you were full yesterday, but today you are hungry. So they got a free SHS. Now they are moving to the next level, which is the university or the tertiary institution. Free SHS is not going to pay for their university education. So the NDC is seeing that quickly is introduce the no-fee stress program, so they can harvest at least some of the people there. That is a strategy I think they introduced.
And the NPP appears to be cut them young and they shall be rough forever.
But yes, but, you know, so the issue about digitalization, I think that they are both, you know, equal on that level. They both want to train 1 million youth in coding or digital skills, almost saying the same thing, etc. Unemployment is a key issue. NPP says they've created how many jobs? 2.5 million jobs or 2.7 million jobs. NDC says they are the people to create the jobs. Apprenticeship. And a lot of the things they've said, of course, we heard of the Akukon Kitikiti and all of that. You know, the issue of jobs is also at the center of it. So now talking about young people, free SHS, digitalization, unemployment, key. Now, let me quickly speak about the numbers down south. So the two candidates are from the northern part of the country. They want to vote, but their numbers are not many. The guys down south want to vote, but not as much as the guys up north. That is why they have running mates from the southern part of the country. We know Napo's job was cut out for him. Whether he's been able to do that well or not, we'll see after Saturday. Professor Jenano Pokwajima, Central Region, as Bernard showed, is also one of the areas with high numbers in terms of the young people who are registered or new first-time voters. Whether she's also been able to do it well, we will see. Mind you, in the last election, the NDC won the parliamentary in that region, but lost the presidential. She was on the ticket, but she failed to get the region to vote for herself and John Mahama. She spent quite some time there. To be interesting to see how Central Region turns out in terms of the numbers. There are very important constituencies there. The Kaswa, what's the name? Awutu Senya East has a lot of people. The Gomoa areas and the Agona areas, a lot of people. But the Ayawasu East and the Gomoa West have traditionally been NPP. Are they able to turn that around or eat into that lead? If they're able to get that, then it will show up the numbers for presidential. It may not be parliamentary, because parliamentary, no matter the number, once you win, you win. The numbers, how they're able to do, will be important to turn the presidential around.
Okay, Alaska. Larry, you want
to You know, I think that this election is largely going to be defined by the youth. Okay. So,
but sorry, do they care?
No, I think they care.
They care?
Yeah, they care.
I think they don't.
No, they do. They
don't care.
They care. Don't.
I think they do.
No, they do.
Not that they don't care because they are irresponsible.
Yeah,
they are just happy people. Yeah? They are happy.
Okay.
So again, I'll use the surveys. Afrobarometer, what's the other one? NCC and Global Info Analytics. The largest chunk of people who say I won't vote are between the ages of 18 and 29. So the largest chunk of those who say I won't vote are supposedly first-time voters. So
did they give the reason?
They don't go beyond that. They break it down. So a lot of older people want to vote.
I think they are not happy with the few that I've spoken.
No,
but
by the way, this is October. You see, I always use these surveys, and I look at the campaigns as well, because election dynamics are not steady. So if somebody does a survey in October and a lot of youth say they are not going to vote, the politicians also read these surveys. So they craft their messages in November into December around those. So my point is that generally, the largest, so less women wanted to vote and less youth wanted to vote. So even though they are saying they are fighting for the youth, that the Gen Zs in particular seem to be disenchanted with the political system.
Indifferent.
A lot of them support such the demonstrations that were done by the Occupy Julobi group and that type of thing. A lot, especially the so-called woke generation. So again, youth is very broad because some youth in rural communities are very eager to vote and they are very political. So I always have to bring that distinction in there. But the service basically said that 18 to 29-year group were the largest chunk of I won't votes than the others. So if that will help your discussion.
And also perhaps because these are people who are now forming their political identities. If you look at most of the people who would be second or third or fourth time voters, these are persons who would have been born in an era or met an era of basically moving on from Rawlings, going to the Atamils, Rawlings to Kufour, to Atamils, to Mahama, to a Kufour. If not, they would have seen Mahama, a Kufour. So there's a little bit of political experience. But they would also that would mean that their choices are slightly better informed. That would also mean that there has been time for these two parties or other parties to woo them. That's right. But these numbers that we are looking at are persons who are now perhaps looking to make up their minds about where exactly they fall. And genuinely, most of them might also not feel enamored by the options that are available to them now.
Cheddar is there.
Yeah.
There's also that.
Yeah.
There is also that.
I'll tell you something about Cheddar. Briefly, some of them, I'll say something about Cheddar. Cheddar, again, in the polls, was rising very much. There was a comment he made about the recent demonstration, which affected him.
Yes.
So, I was looking at the numbers. Cheddar was always doing like a 4-5, better than Alan. Then I think after the recent demo at Down Galamsey, he allegedly said something about whether these people were not being political. A lot of that group were upset with him that he said that. And we've seen a bit of decline.
He lost it.
Yes, a bit of decline in his numbers there because those guys, as you said, they are now forming their political opinion. So it's probably not disenchantment. It's not as uncertainty. They don't know where to go. And maybe they were thinking Cheddar was a vehicle. And I'm not sure that's the only thing. But that comment really annoyed social media followers, that group. So maybe they are still not sure who to vote for since they are looking for an independent champion they are not getting. So that would be an interesting.
Back to what Akoto was saying. I mean, these 18-year-olds, most of them are still living on the aprons of their parents. Okay? So, like he said, their political views haven't been formed yet. I mean, bread and butter is provided to you by your mom and dad. So, I mean, fuel, you don't have to buy fuel. Electricity, none. And so everything comes from mom and dad.
But also, if mom and dad who provide for you say this is where we want to go, you are likely to follow.
Yeah, like
but
not in this generation.
Not this generation.
They will contest it.
No.
Yeah.
A few will definitely.
No, but again, it depends on the level of exposure.
You would have been socialized, subconsciously throughout the bread and butter, provision process. So it's not as if they'll call you one morning and say, hey, go vote NDC or go vote NPP. The conversation at home, you have been socialized over the period. So you know that if I won't vote, even if I vote at all, I'm voting for party or party B. Why? Because this is what I know.
But the generation we grew up in, we were living on just TV and radio. These guys have access to internet.
Yeah.
And so they are picking up so much information all over the world. So their opinions are, already formed.
You see, that raises the question of whether the various political parties have farmed properly and whether they are harvesting that which they have farmed. Because you have Snapchat. The question is whether the NPP and NDC played very well around these issues. You understand? Of course, you hear the highfalutin ideas about what they want to do on Facebook and Twitter. But the truth is that these are platforms used generally by the older folks. So the question is, if you go on Snapchat, Instagram, were they as heavy? And did they TikTok? Were they as heavy in terms of driving their message?
Actually, we have a minute. I'm going to give yes.
Already?
This is just a tease of what to expect on Saturday.
I am moving.
You are protesting.
Respectfully, I'm moving.
Respectfully, I love you too. But it's not going to happen. So
the judge will dismiss it.
Yes. So I am the judge yet. It's not happening. But just to tell viewers and listeners, yes, Bernard will wrap up with just 20 seconds. So let him have that, and then I wrap up. Bernard,
so basically, as Vivian said, we are just
say.
letting the viewers know that this is the type of thing we'll be doing. And we chose to do it after the 2 major rallies, so you can get a sense of where we are headed. But starting 6 a.m. on Saturday, we're going to be very heavy on data and also evidence from the past, experience in covering elections, and just being there at the right time. So don't get too bored. This is just this is the old dev. Is that what they call it, Godfred? This is the beginning before we get into the main course.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming.
A pleasure.
This, like Bernard has said, this is just the beginning. On Saturday, we start our coverage proper of the 2024 elections, and we end till the declaration of the next president of the Republic of Ghana. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko, here with Selorm Adonoo, Larry Dogbe, Godfred Akoto Boafo, Richard Dela Sky, and our very good friend, Bernard Avle. Yes, Mr. Touchscreen. On Thursday, we'll have all of them. Friday, actually on Saturday, all of them and all that you need to know. Normal programming continues from now. Goodbye.